Welcome to Tyrompers No Limit Podcast.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, we have a special treat today. You know, I get fired up all the time, but today I am so fired up to introduce one of my best friends, my brothers for life. This guy is just an amazing champion, inspires me every day. He's about half the size he would have been if we'd done this podcast a year ago. This man's lost over 100 pounds, inspires the heck out of me and everyone around us. My brother, my great friend, welcome to the podcast, Mr. Andrew Harris. How you doing today, brother?
Dude, I'm so excited to be here. This is a special one. I've been on a couple podcasts as I've lost weight, but to be on yours with just how much you've invested in me and helped out. You even said it before the show. I did the work, but man, without you, I don't know where I'd be. So I'm just grateful for you and grateful to be on the show.
Brother, I'm so grateful for you, man. There's many days I've told you this where like my alarm will go off. I'm like, man, it's one of those days I'm gonna take it easy. Then I got Andy on my phone dinging me like I'm getting after it. I'm 100 flights in. I'm going down. You fire me up so much, man. For anybody who might not know you, because I want to highlight you, everything about you, share your kind of life and story, because I feel like it's so inspiring to so many people. So maybe just give us a quick little rundown, man, 2-3 minute recap of who you are, what you're about, brother.
Yeah, I mean, for one, just who I am now, like my identity has shifted. Like it changed completely. Coming back to Jesus and spending time with you and Mike and our group of guys, and then getting to know Zach, and just how all of that came together has shifted how I see myself and who I am. And so I'm able to walk in that every day. And that's been a big thing for me, because for some reason the why never transferred for me. Like having a strong why, even though I believe that that's important, for me, it never shifted anything that I did. And so once I started to see myself as actually that person, I was able to actually start moving. And so the preface to that, before that, I went through an awful divorce. It wasn't as bad as some can be, for sure, but it just wrecked me. And I chose to go straight to the bottle and just was drinking 5 to 7 days a week sometimes, and really ignoring all of the pain that was going on inside of me, and didn't really want to come face it. When I messaged Gabe Pluguez from Default Kings, and then after working with him, started working with you and Mike. That was the shift. That was the beginning shift. And I said this on Charles's podcast, is that was the beginning where I didn't even realize that was taking a step of courage at the time. I didn't realize getting on the phone call was even taking that step. I thought I was just trying to find anything. And so I had that time where I just waffled and didn't really have a chance to move forward, but I was moving forward, and you guys helped me to start to see that. And then eventually it clicked, and let's go 100 pounds down. And now we're here, and just wanting to help anybody else that's in that situation. I've been there. I've been at the place where, man, I should be dead or in jail. And somehow I'm here, and God's turning my mess into a message, as we've said many times before. So just excited to be here.
Amen, brother. I think the reason I was so drawn to you right away, Andy, is because our stories parallel so much, man. And I always told you, 12, 13 years ago, I was exactly where you were, man. I was at the bar 5, 6, 7 days a week, just drowning my sorrows. I didn't want to face anything. It was easier to just watch shows, eat bad food, and escape, man. And I did that for a while, but you took that first step of courage, man. Can you kind of talk about the build up to that, and like maybe some of those really low points? And if somebody watching this today is in some of those really low points and they feel like, man, I can't see the other side, Andy. You don't know my situation, right? Like, I just can't see that other side. What do you say to those people, man?
Yeah, I mean, for one, yeah, I don't know where you are, but I can tell you this: I've probably been there. And so for me, my lowest point for me was when I got arrested, and I drove home from the bar on a night I should never have driven home. Should have not gotten in that car. And that for me was a turning point, and a part where it shifted. Now, I'd like to say that I just stopped drinking that day and went forward, but it did start to shift things in my mind, because I was like, where am I? This is not who I am. I cannot believe this happened. Well, one thing I haven't shared before online is that I went back and read through the police report from that night. I should have hit 5 or 6 semis. I should have hit other cars with people in them. I should be in prison or dead. And for some reason, that's not my story. And I don't share that lightly, because it's a pretty embarrassing piece of my story. But the reason I share that is God protected me in those moments. And sure, those things happen, and I hope that they never happen for anyone, but for some reason he protected me. And so I feel like I need to share that with somebody else, so that you know that even if you've done something that you feel so stupid about, because I still look back and like, man, what in the world was I thinking? But God used that moment to turn it into now sharing this moment so that someone else can see, hey, he's been there too. And you can come back from that. You can move forward from that. You can get to the lowest of lows in your life and still take steps forward. And it wasn't, I got arrested next day, everything's good, and I've changed my identity and I move forward. I mean, that was a year and a half ago now. Mm-hmm. And so it takes time, it takes a process, it takes work, and it takes other people helping you to be able to move forward. But if you're at the lowest of lows, I've been there, man, and you can get out. You can get out. You can't get out alone, but you can get out. And so just take those steps. Take one step today to be able to move forward.
Yeah, I like how you touch on that, like the power of community, right? And I couldn't have made it by myself. And I go back to some of very similar stories of you, man, where I actually have a thread that I haven't ever posted that's like 6 times I should be dead, man. Like that I put myself in the dumbest situations ever where I should have died, you know? And I wake up some days with just an immense amount of gratitude too, that like for some reason I had a lot of people praying for me at that time, I think in my life that God spared me. But I can resonate with all you said, but let's talk about that power of community and you being courageous enough to take that step, man, and reaching out to Gabe. Shout out to Gabe. I love that guy. And awesome. And other people, man. And then everybody now, I feel like you've gone full circle because now you're the guy like inspiring so many other people, man. But when you're at a low point, it's hard to acknowledge, hey, I might need somebody to reach down and lift me up a little bit. What was the mindset of you around then? And you know, talk about that journey, man.
Well, let me first talk about that. The first piece of that is I never wanted to talk to anybody. I mean, when you hit that low point, I think you get in that space of, I can't tell anybody this. I can't talk to anybody about this. I don't want anybody to know. But here's the deal, guys. The truth comes out anyway, so we might as well share it. And as men especially, we want to hold it on. We can do it. I can get this. I can do it. It's one of the biggest lies from Satan and one of the biggest lies from the world that's out there is that men can do it on our own. And we can't. We cannot do it on our own. We just think we can because we have that hubris. We have that pride. We all have it. I mean, you, me, we all have that pride. I still do it some days. I mean, I was praying yesterday with God of like, man, why do I feel a little distant today, Lord? I haven't reached out to Ty. I haven't reached out to my buddy Brian. I haven't reached out. So he wants us to live in community. He lives in community. So why would we not live in community? You
Jesus
know,
walked around every day with 12 dudes. They ate together.
Yeah, 12 dudes and the Trinity, right? Like he is community. So I think that's where for me it's so for first I was in that spot where I didn't want to do it. And eventually I just got to a point where if I just hold on to this forever, I'm gonna destroy my life. And so I knew I needed to reach out to somebody. And honestly, the reason I reached out to you guys online is because it was easier. It was easier than going to anybody that I knew. And so that's one thing too, is you don't have to go to somebody go to somebody that you feel like you can trust and just start sharing little bits and pieces. You don't need to go in. I didn't come to you, Ty. And I mean, heck, I don't even think I told you the DUI story until a few weeks ago.
Yeah.
So you don't have to share everything right away. It's just, you need somebody to hear you. And you need somebody that you know is there for you, that will help you and will pick you up when the pieces are crumbling all around you. And so that step was just, it was a phone call. I thought I didn't really have any money at the time. So I thought you guys would just all say no. And then I would move on. But Gabe and you and everybody's just incredible people. And so you helped me out. And so, it's got me to where I am today.
Man, I think there's so much freedom is the word that comes to my mind when we open up and share. And I'm like you, man, I wanted to hide when I was at those low spots. Dude, this is hard to even think back to those days. I couldn't walk down in my building in Chicago and get the mail for 3 and 4 days at a time. I didn't want to see anybody. There was so much shame on divorce, addiction, all the things I was battling. I just didn't want to see people. And the moment that my buddy Colby invited me to the gym, and the moment that my buddy Eddie Lowen, who I love to death and chatted with last night, my first mentor, invited me to coffee, and I just could share a little bit and learn that, dude, other people that I look up to once struggled with some of these things too, right? And that we're all fighting these battles. It's not just me. There's a community of people around us. And the cool thing is, as you've shared some things, other guys from our men's group are like, yeah, man, I've been there too, or I am there, and now you can lend a hand, or they can lift you up. And that's the power of community, right? And it's such an underlooked thing in our society today, but it's so necessary, man.
Well, that freedom piece is so huge. I think we want to live in shame. I mean, we think we've got to pay a penance for all the things that we made mistakes for. And the thing is yeah, there are consequences to actions, right? Like I drove home, I got arrested. There's consequences, and we have to face those, and we need to face those. But we don't have to pay secondary consequences when we don't have to. And that's where I think we do, especially as men, we pay for things for years that we should have let go of 10 years ago. And I've shared this before, but it's that picture of like holding on to chains on the wall. Like the chain is not around your wrist anymore, but you're holding on to it. You're not letting go of it, and you're not walking away from it because you feel like you still have to pay for that. And we don't have to pay for that anymore. And so community allows us to realize that we don't have to beat ourselves up anymore, and that everyone's fighting similar battles. And yeah, they may be different. Everybody has different battles that they're fighting, but we all have them. Every human being has them. So anybody that says they're doing great and doing well and doing awesome all of the time is not true. Now, do we have joyful energy as we start to realize these things because we know that we can live in freedom? Absolutely. But that doesn't mean we don't have bad days or hard days or difficult days. So yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I always hear from people, how are you always so happy and positive? I'm like, bro, you see the highlights that I post. I ain't posting the 12 diarrhea diapers that I changed today because my boys are sick, right? Like, ain't nobody going to follow that. So it's like, I choose to focus on the positive things, but everybody has those struggles, man. And I want to talk about faith and what that image of chains, because, man, you're a man that I love and admire. We talk faith a lot in our walk with Christ, and how, I love your testimony and story. But, I think too often the enemy plants that in our mind and really weighs us down with that. And so how did you start to overcome that? Maybe share a little of your testimony and journey to let those go and say, you know what, I'm going to forgive myself and move forward. I'm tired of living back here. I want to go forward.
Yeah. So, I mean, for one, I was in your guys' group through August of that year. I think this was August 2022 now is when I was in your group. And like I've said in a thread before, your guys' groups never end. So it's still ongoing, but
it's a lifetime membership with me.
Exactly. It's a lifelong membership, but the weekly calls have ended. And so that October following that was a word retreat. And I had put out a message on Facebook. I felt like God told me to do it. First time I'd really heard from God in I don't know how long. And not because he wasn't speaking, but I was finally listening, right? And so I put out this thing on Facebook asking for a men's group. I actually have never gone to the men's group that somebody sent to me, but I got to this retreat. And at this retreat, God found me. And through one of the stories, because it was a lot about fathers and sons. I have my pictures from my boy up here. I'll get emotional if I talk too much about him because I love that little man. But the whole retreat theme, not planned, was about fathers and sons. Every testimony was about fathers and sons. So it really impacted me. And God told me at that retreat, I'm going to restore you to restore others. And at that time, I'm like, what are you talking about? I'm lost, man. I'm still 340 pounds at the time. I'd kind of stopped drinking, but I didn't believe it. But he showed me that and said that, and then said, just go, just trust me. And so it was a daily process from then on. I had a mentor that I met with weekly. I talk with you and Mike constantly. I talk with our group constantly, and just started to take steps into that. And so with my faith, it's been a daily process. One thing that God asked me to do was to spend time with him every single day. And I think that's something that we miss in society. We're like, well, man, I don't hear from God. God doesn't talk to me. God's not there. Well, I always look back at, well, when you're on a sports team and you have a coach and it's really loud, like a state championship, national championship, World Series, whatever, extremely loud. Can you hear that coach? Every time you can. The players can, right? The players can hear that coach. Yeah. Why can they hear him? Because they spend time with him every single day.
I love that.
And so when you spend time with him every single day, you're going to start to know his voice. You're going to start to understand his voice. You're going to start to be able to see things that, man, maybe he's just mouthing something from the sidelines, but you know what it is because you have been around him every single day. And so that's, for me, is how my faith has changed. I think we'll hear a lot of, well, you can't hear from God. God doesn't say that. God doesn't do that. Well, have you spent any time with him? And so that's the one thing that for me in my faith journey of, man, when I was off at the bars and I was off doing so, I didn't want to hear from anyone. And so I didn't spend any time with him. I didn't pray. I didn't talk to him. And yet there's still one time where he met me when I was drunk coming home and spoke directly to me. So he still meets with you. He'll still try. He's always knocking at the door, but we've got to open it. And once we open it and we actually spend that time, he's gonna answer that. And so one last thing I want to share here, just because it comes up, is that he showed me that I was in this compound for all of that year. Like, God was protecting me in this compound. I was afraid. There's beer bottles all over the floor. It's this vision he gave me, but he was at the door going like this the whole time, just knocking. Once I opened that door, I got to walk out with him, and I'm more protected walking next to him than I ever was in the compound that I thought I was more protected in. So anyways, God will do so many more things if you just open the door.
Man, that's a powerful image. And I know one of the books, we just read as a men's group was the ruthless elimination of hurry, and how you talk about that. It really hits me too, of in today's world and society, we have to actively seek God. There's notifications, deadlines, chores, bills, a million things going for our attention. And I was where you were, several years ago. I was a Christian. I was on a self-improvement journey. And then one day I heard from God, kind of a tug, man. You give me 1 hour a week and you expect me to move mountains in your life. You give me 1 hour. You go to church for 1 hour and yeah, you talk to me then. What about the other 167? What are you doing? And it really became a thing for me too, where I wake up every day now and say, hey, Jesus, I don't know where we're going today, but let's take a walk. I just want to take a walk with you. And I have to carve out time. I listened to a sermon last night after church Saturday, like multiple sermons a week. Like if you're given Netflix 30 hours a week and God won, you show what your priorities are. And so, guys like you who now see the miracles, and brother, we've witnessed miracles together on retreats, things that are 1,000,000,000,000 odds. No way that this stuff could happen, right? But I think that happens because, man, you allow God to really work in your life, and you submit every day, and you do those daily habits, whether you feel like it or not. You seek him, right?
Yeah, and that's the thing too, is that whether you feel like it or not, in any relationship, you're not going to feel like it some days. I wish I would have realized this for my 10-year marriage, right? There's days where you're not going to feel like it, even with God. God's not mad about that. I think we also put that on ourselves too, of like this shame of, man, I don't want to spend time with God. I feel guilty for that. I'm not going to spend time with God. No, if you spend time with God on the days you don't want to, he's so excited about that, so happy about that. And it's those days, the days where you don't feel like it, this with the gym, this with anything in life. The days where you don't feel like it create the days that are amazing, right? If we don't have the days where we don't feel like it, we don't have the amazing days.
Right.
If you skip those, then you're not going to get to those. And so I think that's the piece too of why I just said it's going to be every day. I mean, heck, yesterday I just listened to the Bible app because I'm doing a year Bible plan right now.
Nice.
I don't remember a single thing from it. Like it was one of those days where I'm just kind of playing with it. I'm getting there. I'm spending the time. I still pray, do the things that I need to do, but I didn't feel much. Well, then God meets with me later on a walk. Right. So those times where I'm spending time with him allows him to show up more because I'm placing him at the center of my life, and rather than just on the back burner, like you talked about with that 1 hour a week.
Man, I love that. I instantly think of our children too, because I know what a great dad you are, and I'll cry too if we will. We share too much on that, but I think of my daughter, who's about to be 8, and she has days where she'll say, I'm not really feeling great, Daddy, or something feels a little off, or I'm not. What am I going to do? Tell her, like, as a loving father, we'll get away. If you're not your best, you can't come to me.
Exactly.
Of course not, man. Come here. Let me put my arm around you. Let me carry you over here. Let me help. Talk to me about it. Share with me about it, right? Like, I think God the Father is a similar way. And some of my prayers, man, especially in those early days of self-improvement, were like, God, I feel unworthy. I feel anxious. I feel this. I don't feel your presence. Help me. Please give me a vision. Please put yourself in my mind and your thought, like begging almost to just please come. I didn't really know what else to do. But I think when you have a relationship, it gives you the freedom to admit, yeah, I'm just having a lousy day, God. Can you help a little bit here? Can we talk about this? Not every day you're going to be on the mountain, right?
No. Well, what's funny too is we forget, like, God met me when I was drunk and stupid. And yet when I'm actually pursuing him, if I'm not having my best day, I think he doesn't want anything to do with me and is upset. Like, it makes no sense. If he's going to pursue me here, why is he not proud of me and pursuing me here? Like, he's so proud of you and me and anyone that's pursuing him and choosing him. He's so excited about that. And yet we look at it as the world standards of, I got to earn it, I got to earn it, I got to earn it. And if I don't earn it, then he's not going to be happy with me. And yeah, sure, there's a sanctification process. God wants us to grow and become more like him. But if we have a bad day, he's not saying, well, you didn't do it today, screw that. You know,
You're done. Out of the,
he's still trying. Yeah. Yeah, exactly. And so that's the coolest thing about salvation. We don't have to earn anything.
Yeah.
It's already freely given. And then he just works on us to help us to learn how to be more obedient every single day.
That's right, man. I feel like that goes back to that chains image too. That, and I ask myself this question a lot when I'm having anxious thoughts or I'm feeling really attacked. I'll say, where are these coming from? Hey, Ty, where do you think these negative thoughts are coming from? These anxious thoughts, these thoughts of unworthiness, these thoughts of shame. Where do you think they're coming from? I can pretty clearly answer it's the enemy, right? And so once you acknowledge that, then you can fight back with scripture. You can fight back with praise music. You can fight back with just understanding not every day is on a mountain, but I'm going to do the right things. And then I'll get to those points, man. And, you know, you're a man who I can come full circle with this one real easy, doing the right things and showing up. Because I think if we'd had this chat, you know, 16 months ago and said, hey, Andy, you're going to be down 103 pounds in 16 months. You would have laughed probably, right? Like, dude, 103 pounds, like the day in, day out work and grind and what you have to put into that. So maybe walk us through that on days you don't feel like it. How has that journey of the last 16 months been? You've lost it, you know, a couple children of weight, you know, and almost an adult.
Yeah, my son's 45 pounds about, and so I've lost a couple of him. So it's pretty awesome. And now I can actually lift him up. So I got 3, right? So anyways, but yeah, you know, the biggest thing I think first is that you guys gave me a vision for that. So one thing that we did in your guys' group is we wrote that 1-year letter to ourselves, and you guys gave us a vision that I was on that call. If that was this call right here, you guys would not hear a word. No one on that call heard a word when I read that, because I was bawling through the whole thing because I didn't believe a single word that was written, but I had to write it. And so one thing that's really cool that I'll share real quick is that at the testimony retreat that I got to share at, so I actually got to come full circle at that retreat that I came back to Jesus at and share my testimony in April. When I shared there, I shared that every single thing in that letter is true.
Man.
And that was I think it was like 3 weeks before a year was going to be up, or 4 weeks before a year was up. So even before a year, all that stuff was true. And so you guys started that process by giving me a vision that I couldn't even see myself. And so that's that power of community as well. But I'll just say too, on the days that you don't feel like it, here's the deal with our identities. Our old identity always wants to come back. It always wants to come back. It's there. Now, as you grow, it'll be less and less. It'll get quieter because your other one is louder. But it's like Zach has talked about, the higher self and the lower self. And so that lower self will continue to try to grind at you. And so being able to set up support systems for the days that are hard, for the days that are difficult, having people that you can lean on that aren't just going to beat you up when you're messing up, but are going to actually support you. Now, they're willing to call you out. You guys are willing to call us out, but also you're going to support us on those days and help us to be able to move forward on those days. And then for me, my identity shifted. I was not that person anymore. And so if I'm not that person anymore, then what are my habits that I want to set up so that I can become the person that I believe that I am? Because I have to still become it, right? I believe that I'm that, but if I take no action to be it, then I'm not that. So our beliefs are only the starting point. So now I believe that I can do it. And so now I set up my habits to be able to do it. And I started super slow. I mean, I was in the gym 2 days a week the first time, 3 days a week the second time, 3 days a week, then 4 days a week. Then I added walking in. And honestly, with some people, I would say that's even too fast. The reason that I was able to do it is because I was going on another retreat. So I knew I had to walk. I knew I had to hike. I knew I had to. So it allowed me to kind of set it up in that moment. And then I didn't start changing anything with my diet until about a month and a half in as well. And so everything needs to come in its time. And then, I mean, we've talked about this with porn, changing that and shifting that. I mean, that was a 3, 4, 5 month process of God finally going, hey, we need to shift this. And so everything comes in its time so that we don't overwhelm ourselves. I'm an all or nothing guy. I actually think you're an all or nothing guy.
100%.
Like, we're easily all or nothing people. And so we've had to train ourselves to do it in chunks.
Yep.
And if you do it in chunks, you will become who you want to become.
Mm.
But you also got to start to believe that that is who you are as well. And if you don't believe that's who you are, then it's just behavior modification that will eventually, I mean, you can be modify behavior for 5 years and then it goes away if you never change your beliefs. You have to change your beliefs and who you are.
Man, so many things. I'm gonna be down like doing push-ups again. I did many push-ups. I'm gonna get down. You're firing me up so much when you talk, man. Just knowing your journey. I want to allude to something to anybody listening here. What we had Andy and a bunch of other guys do when they joined our group is write a letter to themselves a year from now, saying the kind of body they'd have, the kind of relationships they'd have, what their faith would be like, all these things, right? And then we kind of worked back and made some steps to get there. And many of those days, I remember, Andy, that, one gift I think about community too is I could see this person before you could. It was very clear to me, man.
Yep.
You're a super strong-willed guy. When you set your mind to something, you're gonna do. I could see exactly where you were gonna go, I think, before you could see it. And so I'm laughing when you're saying like some tough love some days, because I remember taking a walk, like I'm shirtless and I'm fired up, and I'm like, Andy, get up today. It's time to go. What are you waiting for, man? Like, go, like. Some of those days, man, but now you're doing that to me. It's flipped, man, where now you're encouraging and firing me up some days too. But I think the coolest thing about all this is you spoke into that vision of who you knew God created you to be, and you went there. And Craig Groeschel talks about this, one of my favorite preachers. I say declarations every day. Who I'm going to be. I speak to myself. When I started those, they were not true. Man, I'm a loving husband that's going to cherish his wife and put her needs first. Bro, that was the exact opposite husband I was when I started saying that. I think if you ask my wife now, I've taken steps to get there. And there's a big, big power in our words and what we say to ourselves and how we talk to ourselves and all these things. And when you have community around you that's also building you up, that's the cheat code. So now let's talk about, man, you're down over 100 pounds. Life is really looking good. I love you sharing on social media. You're now coming up on thousands of followers just from starting to share, which is amazing. I'm going to link everything Andy does below. If you don't follow this guy, you're off my team. So give this guy a follow. But now maybe talk about what that's like, being able to really reach down and maybe help or empathize with people where they're at and say, hey, man, take my hand. I've been there. Come this way with me. Take the first step, right? What's that been like for you?
Man, really, really humbling and cool. But the biggest thing for me is God has shown me so much about, I'm a teacher at heart. Like, I love to help. I don't know why he's giving me that, but that's who I am. I love to help and I love to encourage and I actually took a test on I think it's the six working geniuses test, and it talks about enablement as one of and enablement in a good way of I'm an encourager. I love to encourage and help and inspire. And so being able to do that and now getting to see people where I was, I know where that spot is. It's the same thing you did with me, is you knew that spot. And so I'm able to speak into that spot and be able to talk and just communicate. And what's been really neat about sharing the story, this is another thing too with community. You don't have to share all over on social media like we do, but what I've found is, sure, there's people that say silly things on there, but most of the time people are genuinely caring and loving and just need to hear that story. I've had people reach out, they don't want coaching or anything, but they're like, man, I needed to hear that story. Thank you for sharing that story. And so being able to understand too, that just reaching back in and being able to share the story that God's given me and the message that he's teaching me it's an exciting time of being able to work back and help people get to where I am, because now I know it's possible. And I could see that it's possible. I didn't see that it was possible for so long. So I know that when you're in that spot, when people are in that spot, they don't see that it's possible. So being able to speak that life into them of, hey, this is possible. Jesus will help you. I will help you. Ty will help. Everybody will help you. Like, we just reach out. We will help you to do that. And so it's a cool journey. And maybe I'm a little bit lost for words at the moment, because it's just so special to me that I get to do that at this point. And just seeing that from where I was to be able to help other people in this journey is so humbling and so exciting. And just for anybody that's listening, I just love you, man. Like, I love you before I know you, because I've been there and it sucks and it's hard. And I just want you to know that you can come out of it. And I want you to know too, that my marriage is not restored. My marriage wasn't restored. My family still is separated. It's a hard thing. It's a difficult thing, but I'll tell you this, my joy and my peace is still in here because I've grown and made that. So it doesn't have to have the perfect ending in terms of everything happening the way that we thought it would or wanted it to be able to still move forward and have an even better ending, because God works everything for good. So if we believe that, he's going to work yours for good as well. And so it's exciting to be able to come from that perspective now of like, hey, he's going to work everything for good. So let's just believe him and trust him, and let's work towards it.
And I love that so much, man. And I think that's so cool that when you can look back, and I always think the ripple effect, right? Of like, we're really doing the world a disservice. Like if you had just not fought back, if you had just continued to drink, go the way that you would have, how many countless people would be less inspired today to take action? Or how many countless people, right? And so if somebody's listening to this today too, I feel like you owe it to yourself. You owe it to your creator. You owe it to the world, man, to find and grow and become that best version of yourself. So I love that, man. Let's talk about the weight loss specifically, because I do know that a lot of people listen to this. That's a big pressing issue, right? And I just want to lose weight. I know I'd feel better. For a lot of people, it's like 20 pounds. They don't need 100 or more.
Yeah.
But some people there are. What were some of the, you talked about walking and not doing everything at once. Yeah. Can you kind of talk a little bit more about that? Because I feel like that trips a lot of people up, man. Well, I'm going to go to the gym 7 days a week. I'm going to eat perfect. I'm going to do and all or nothing, right? And then you're motivated, and then 9 days later you're not, and it all falls off, right?
Well, and I just posted yesterday actually about I'm getting a lot of questions in my DMs at this point of how fast did you lose it? How quickly did this happen? And I think don't get me wrong, I asked the same question, right? When you're heavier, you just want it off. You just want it gone. So I have no problem with that question. Keep asking it. I love talking about it. But I will say that that's not the question we need to ask. The question is, how are you going to keep it off? How are you setting up habits so that this is something that continues after you've gotten to where you want to be? Yeah. And that's the biggest thing with weight loss. And so we need to look at it not from the short term of just the beach body. I want this for summer, and then I can go back to doing whatever I want in the winter, and then I can have this for summer. And if that's you, great. I mean, it's sweet. But I don't think that's the best way for weight loss. I don't think that's the best way for identity. I think what it is finding something that works for your whole life. That's going to help you get to your 80s and 90s, Lord willing, as long as no accidents happen, you're going to get to that spot. And so being able to look at it from a long-term approach. And so for me, it's walking and it's protein and calories. I think those are the biggest things. I think weightlifting is awesome as well. I think that's a big deal. But I also think as far as weight loss goes, steps, you're going to get weight loss way faster with steps than you're ever going to get it in the gym. I think your body is going to shift and change in the gym, and it is going to help you lose weight. But because muscle will burn way faster than fat will burn. But I also think that walking and just taking those steps is going to help you get going. And so you don't have to do it all at once. If you're doing nothing, something is going to help. So if you just get off the couch and go for, I'm not even saying 20 minutes, just go for a 5-minute walk. I mean, there's that guy that went to the gym for 2 months for 5 minutes and then left and created the habit. I mean, just go for 5 minutes, and you might be winded. Don't get mad at yourself. It's where you are. Just accept it. This is where I am today. But guess what? Tomorrow you're going to go a little further. The next day you're going to go a little further. Maybe you do 5 minutes for 2 weeks, and then you up it to 10 minutes, and then you up it to 20 minutes. And honestly, if you just walk for 20 minutes a day for the rest of your life, you're gonna get
a massive improvement off of zero.
Yeah, it's a massive improvement. Now, you may not lose weight if you don't change your diet with that, but you will get healthier. Yeah. And so with that, as you build that habit, man, start to add one little more bit of protein than a carb in a meal. And then slowly shift that to where you're, getting your grams per body weight of a day, and you're getting your calories to a certain spot. I mean, I shifted this not like this, because if you do it like this, you're just going to want to go back to that. So shift it slowly, start slowly, and then find out what works for you. I mean, I don't get 10,000 steps every single day now because I'm working out at a CrossFit gym. It's working me over. So I probably get 10,000 steps 5 days a week right now, but there's days where I get 15 or 20. So I average about 70,000 a week, but I don't get 10,000 every day. So, and that's what works for me to be able to get to where I want to be. But you don't need to do all of those things at once. I think that's a hard thing. Is I've had people ask me, what do you do for weight loss? Well, if I give you everything I'm doing right now, it's just going to overwhelm you. Let me give you what I did on day 1. And then let's talk about it. And I'll give you what I did on day 30. And then I'll give you what I did on day 60. And then we'll tweak it and figure out what's working best for you. I mean, there was a time about 5 weeks ago that I was 260 pounds for 3 weeks. I mean, I didn't lose any weight, but I was doing the same habits, but I had to figure out, okay, so I need to adjust something in my diet. If I'm doing the same habits and something's not shifting, then I needed to shift something. So that's part of weight loss, is just figuring out what's working, what's not. What worked at 330 pounds is not going to work at 260 pounds. And so we've got to be able to shift that as well. And it doesn't mean that you have to do these huge tweaks and it's going to be terrible. It's just little tweaks and you're going to get to where you want to go. And I'm looking at this long term. So if I don't get to 200 pounds by August, that's okay. That's my goal. I believe I'll be there. But if I don't, and I'm at 210, I'm still progressing towards where I want to be. So that's the big thing too, is just shifting it to the long-term thinking, and you can do it.
Yeah. That key piece there, that long-term vision. And I think we're set up in our society, in our world, for just an instant gratification, right? You want this, just click the button, it shows up. Or, everything is this short-term gratification. And if you can have a long-term vision today and think in terms of years, decades, those are the people that are succeeding. And, I got to go to dinner last night with Zuby. I love this guy so much. And he actually said this to me, and I haven't stopped thinking about it since. He said, Ty, I've never taken on a project I didn't see myself doing decades later. He said, when I started my podcast, I thought, yeah, I'll be in a really good spot in a couple decades of staying consistent with it. When I started my social media journey, yeah, where will I be in a couple decades of being consistent with it? When I got in the gym, man, what kind of body will I have in 10 years? Think about that, being really consistent. And I thought, that's one of the highest achievers I've ever seen or spoken to. And he says, I don't do anything unless I think about this super long-term vision. And it really just hit me with anything we're doing. It's not really a 90-day shred.
No.
Think where you'll be in a couple years with healthy habits. Make these things a part of who you are and your identity. I think you lay out the blueprint there for people. And I think that's so wise, man.
Well, and I think even, man, that speaks to me, because when I'm starting to give back, right? I'm starting to build the business, starting to work with people and help people. And I'm learning that sales are hard, and learning how to do that, right? And learning how to be authentic, because I just want to be me and I want to love on people and help people. And you said it one time the other day online, I think it was, you're like, dude, you're in the prequel to your even chapter book starting, or something along those lines. And I'm like, you're right. Like, this is something to think of. Long-term impact of how we're going to impact for the kingdom is a lifelong journey. It's a lifelong journey. It's not a one-day thing. It's not trying to help someone to hop on board with what you're doing. It's like, no, you're just trying to help people, and the rest of it takes care of itself. And you're just trying to help people find Jesus and find health and find fitness and find all of the things that are going to help them to find joy. And so, that speaks a lot. You're going to make me think about that all day. So I appreciate it.
Yeah, it was pretty good, man. And I want to, at this point, I don't like pitch a lot of stuff on my podcast, but if you're somebody who finds yourself in overweight, any of the stuff Andy's saying with you, man, I'm going to link everything he does below. Shoot this guy a DM. He responds to every DM. He'll give you a word of encouragement if you need that. If you'd like to hire him, man, and just say, hey, I want to take this journey with you, I'd encourage you to do that. This guy will care about your success as much as you will. I'll guarantee you that.
Yep.
And I think, again, we're all better together. And it's like, you don't have to stay on that journey. That, I'll go back to Eddie Lowen. I mentioned him a lot on this podcast, my first mentor. But when I was at my lowest point, and I was word vomiting to him one day, first cup of coffee, dude, I'm this. I can't get this and this and this and this. And he said, hey, man, take a breath. You don't have to walk the whole staircase today. All you got to do, Ty, is pump the brakes and take one step back this way. And you know what you got to do tomorrow? Take one more step back this way. And he said, you'll look back in a year or two, you won't recognize yourself. And I think if you have that kind of vision and that kind of thinking, you can get anywhere you want to go in life. And you are a walking, living testimony of that, my friend.
Well, I appreciate that. And one thing I wanted to say off of that too, is with that one step, there's so much fear and trepidation and all of those things. I don't even care if you hire me. Here's the deal. Take a step, because Satan wants us to stay in fear. The world wants us to stay in fear. The world does not want you to become, like, it's not set up for you to become who you're capable of becoming, because there's so many voices trying to get here. But what you'll find when you take that step is there's so many other voices that love you and care about you and hold you up and cheer for you and want you to go forward. And so Satan wants you to stay in that spot, because if you're in that spot, you're not powerful. But guess what? The power is in you. Like you can do it. You can go. And I don't say that so that you waffle in weakness. That's not what I mean. What I'm saying by that is you are so much more powerful than you realize when you just take that step. Me standing here speaking this on Ty's podcast a year later makes no sense to me at all, because I didn't think I had any of this power inside of me, but God gave it to me, and now I can speak of it. And one thing that he keeps telling me is you got the Lion of Judah in you. So all you got to do is just go forth with me every single day and take those steps. And so you can do that too. One step, your step today to get off the couch and make a call, or get off the couch and do a DM, or even stay on the couch and send a DM. Like that takes more courage than me coming on this podcast at this point, because that is harder, but just take it. Because if you take that one step that day, that first step to get moving, the momentum is just going to keep going and keep going and keep going.
That's right, man. And I always think the enemy only attacks what he fears. And I think the enemy can see the future. And that's why I was so like passionate about you, man, because, you know, the enemy did a big number on you in a lot of battles at the same time. And I always think like now I reframe that in my head as like a Jocko Willink voice. Good. Hey, you're going to attack me today. Good. That means good things are ahead of me, right? Like you need me not at my best. I'm going to make sure I'm at my best because something big is going to happen, right? I reframe that in my head. And I think to all believers out there, you need to know your value and where your value comes from. And that above all else, man, you don't have to listen to that voice, because you're a child of God, right? And you're uniquely made, and you have a gift and you have a calling on your life. It might not be the same as yours or mine or anybody else's, but it is your duty here on earth to find out what that is and to impact others. I truly believe that.
Well, and guys, he's already won. So you can go forth every single day in the confidence to know that he's already won. So if I'm afraid to talk to this person about Jesus, or I'm afraid to go take this step to start losing weight, or I'm nervous about, well, God's with you. He cares about you. So if he cares about you, who cares what that person over there says? It doesn't matter. Like Ty, who would never do this, but Ty could come to me tomorrow and say, screw you, buddy. I just don't want to be around you anymore. And you know what? Would it hurt? Yeah, because I love the guy. But I'll tell you this, I'd still be moving forward. Right. Because I have God in me that's going to help me move forward. Now, that would never happen, but that's something that we know.
Too nice of a guy, Andy.
Exactly.
Can't take it anymore.
Exactly. You're too good. No, but that's the thing is we don't have to have other people who's like, let me rephrase that. The other people that come against what we're trying to do, find the people that are going to support you in what you do. And that's what I had to find in community too. Man, I love my brothers that I don't talk to very much anymore. I love them to death, but they don't support me in this vision, this spot where I want to go. And I had to find guys that would do that and would support me to where I could start to heal. So find those people. They're out there for you, and they are there for you. And so if you find those people, you're just going to go, and God's with you anyway. So even if they don't support you, you just keep going.
That's right, man. And I think we've talked about this a little on a retreat, but it's such a point worth bringing up that sometimes those other friends, you love them and you root for them, but they've seen you the last 20 years, right? Like all my friends for a decade saw me drinking constantly and as the party guy and the life of the party, doing shots and this or that, right? And so when I started to make those changes, some of them didn't really want to let that guy go because they liked that guy, right? He was fun. And when I would invite them to the gym, hey man, I'm not really going to the bar. What, you think you're too good for us now, man? What do you know? And you'd hear some of these comments, right? And they do hurt a little bit, but I think it's necessary as you're growing to recognize that it's not that they're bad. They just only know that other version of you. And you can see that better version, or higher, not better is not the right word, but higher version of yourself, where you want to get to. And unfortunately, at times it means you have to leave some of those environments, right? And you still love those people, you pray for them, you keep inviting them. Hey man, I've invited guys 100 times since I've been in Vegas to come to the gym with me or a hike. 100 times. And 100 times they've invited me to nightclubs. And I'm like, I don't go to nightclubs anymore. Yeah. Man. I got kids, you know, but that's where you end up sometimes.
Well, and to know too, that it's not like, I remember I was talking with Zach about being called fake by one of them. And I am fake to him now. because the true me is not anything like I was for those years. And so it's okay for them to feel that way. And it's okay to reintroduce yourself. It's okay to come back and say, no, this is truly me. This is who I'm going to be for the rest of my life. And it doesn't mean, I don't put anything on them. It was me. I walked away from them because of my weaknesses, not because of their struggles. I walked away from my weaknesses because I needed to get into a community that didn't struggle with those weaknesses. Like I needed to get away from them. And so it wasn't them, it was me. And I think we have to get to that ownership piece of it too, where if you need a new community, it's not the other community's fault.
That's right.
It's you who needs to move on and move to a different spot. And so that's a big piece of it too, is that ownership piece with it as well. I don't blame any of them. I love them. And that's where we need to get to as well.
I love that, man. I think to wrap up here, and we'll like kind of last topic, and I want to plug your coaching a little bit more, but I think something keeps weighing on my heart as we chat and we kind of share a lot of our journey in life and stuff too, is that God doesn't how do I want to say this? He doesn't call the qualified. He qualifies the called.
Yeah.
And so, I think, if you would have told me a decade ago, hey man, you'll be leading men's groups and retreats and all these things, and you'll have this, God will give you this little platform where you can share and impact. I would have been, what am I impacting on? Right. Like to get people to the bar to, what am I doing? Right. But I feel like once you take those first steps, you don't have to have it all solved, man. I'm ugly. The minute I turn my back on Jesus, my thoughts are awful. I'm a terrible person. I can go down real quick. And that's why I try and take a walk with God every single day. But I think once you decide that's the direction I want my life to go, and I'm going to move back that way, he'll start to qualify you as you go. And he'll make you a little bit better version of yourself as you go. Right. And do you kind of see that as you've been moving through this too?
Yeah, that's the thing too, is where I was October when I surrendered back to Jesus and where I am today is way different. But when I came back from that retreat in October, I still took steps, right? There are still steps. I needed to apologize to my ex. I needed to apologize to my son, which I still need to do some of that, but because he's 6. And so that goes over time. But I needed to change some things, but that doesn't mean that he didn't give me the ability to do those things in those moments, to where he didn't say I needed to be where I am today to be able to do things then. Once you have the Spirit in you, God's already with you. So if he asks you to do it, go do it. Be obedient. Obedience accelerates. So if you're obedient to God and you're obedient to the things that you need to do, obedience is kind of a funny word, right? We think of obedience as like this, like obedience school for dogs, right? Where they're like,
negative.
No, you do it. You do this. That's not what it is. If he asks you to do it, it's going to be for your good, for your best. So if he asks you to do it and you do it, you're going to get to where you want to go faster than you think you can get there because you're listening and doing what he asks. It's like Jonah and the whale. If Jonah had just gone and done it, it would have been over and done with and fixed. And he'd done what God asked him to do. But he said no. So he had to spend some time in the belly of a whale. And so I'm not saying that to scare you with God, but what I want to say to that is, if we just are obedient and listen to him, he will accelerate what he wants to do with you. He will make it go even faster than you think. Like, I didn't think I would be doing any coaching at this point in my life. I talked to you on the retreat saying, Ty, when do you think would be a good time to start posting and maybe start sharing my story? When you go home?
Yeah, why not 2 days?
Yeah, I mean, you're just going to share your life, right? Yeah, okay. And that's what it is too, is I've just been sharing my life. And so God is teaching me the rest of that. I'm not a salesman. I'm not trying to get someone to do some quick fix different thing. I want lives to change. You want lives to change. I want identities to change. So that's not going to be done by me. That's going to be done by God. He's going to use me, but that's going to be done by him. So I don't have to worry about any of that stuff of being qualified. And yeah, we feel like we got to be, right? That imposter syndrome is easy to have sneak in. I'm sure you even feel it now, even though you've been doing this forever, right? Yep. And so it's something that can sneak into us and get in there. But God keeps just saying, trust me. And he said, 2 Timothy 1:7 is a big verse for me of just, he didn't give me a spirit of fear, but of power, of love, and of self-discipline. And that power piece is the one that he keeps pushing on my heart and talking to me about, because I downplay his power because I get afraid. But he will qualify me. He will give me what I need. And if it doesn't work out, I make a mistake or things don't go the way that I think they're going to go, he's going to work that for good too. So it's really, I mean, he's going to be with you in all of these circumstances, and where you are today, it's not going to be where you are 6 months from now. It's not going to be where you are 12 months from now, but he can still use you today. So don't disqualify yourself when he's already qualified you.
Man, yeah, amen, brother. I love that. And I think, coming back full circle with everything, again, I want to talk a little bit about your coaching, and then I'll have to wrap up. I can't believe it's been almost an hour, but if anybody would want to contact you, or, maybe who are the typical people that are contacting you, and what's your kind of offer you'll walk them through as you coach and things like that, man? Can you kind of walk us through that quickly?
Yeah, absolutely. So right now I'm starting on June 1st, I'm starting a group coaching called Reclaim Your Identity. And that's a big thing for me is the identity piece behind weight loss. So we'll do weight loss, but as I laid out the course, I really felt God talking like the physical, the mental, and the spiritual. And so we're going to hit all of those things within the 12 weeks. And so we have different things for the physical piece of diet and exercise and how we're going to do that. We have different part. I have a mental coaching in my background of what I used to do before. I mean, honestly, before I kind of went off the rails, I had learned a lot about. And so using some of those mental skills that I've learned from sport and different things to be able to add into our speaking to ourselves, how we talk to ourselves, how we set up our days for success, all of those things. And then the spiritual piece as well. If you don't believe, that's okay. You don't have to come believing. I'm not going to judge you. I'm not going to tell you this. I am going to talk about it because it's in me. It's who I am. But it doesn't mean that you have to go give your life to Jesus on day one and all of that. I actually put it towards the back end. So as we start to learn and grow and trust each other, we can have those deeper conversations about what do you believe? What do you think? Why do you think this? But also being able to share with you the Jesus is real, man, and he will change you, and he'll give you the true identity that you have for yourself. And so those are the 3 pillars that I really hit on in my program. And so that's kind of what's going to happen through the group coaching, but that's also what happens in one-on-one. It's just, you have more time with me. We have more ability to get on the phone call. And if something's bugging you for a day, you can send me a text like I do with you. And we get on a 20-minute little walk and talk and different things like that. And so those are the pillars that I want to hit in my program. And I just want to say this too, is that God really put on my heart last night before this, which is kind of funny, but the divorced men that are out there, just reach out. Like, just send me a message on Twitter, abharris03, send me a DM. Let's just talk. I'm not going to sell you on anything. I just want to talk to you because I know where you are. I know the hurt that you have. It could be 10 years post-divorce and you're still dealing with it. If you're still hating on your ex and struggling with her anytime she does something, healing still needs to happen. If you're just recently separated or you're in a place in your marriage where it might go that direction, reach out, because the goal that God has is for your marriage to be restored. The goal that God wants is for that to happen first. If that doesn't happen, then let's heal from that and then move forward, because he can still work good out of it. But if you're struggling in your marriage right now, reach out too, because I can help you know what not to do. But I also understand now, like, what to do. I've learned from guys like you and guys like Mike of just different things that we can do to be able to help restore that marriage, help work in that marriage so that it doesn't go the same path. You don't have to go down the same path that I did to find your freedom. You can find your freedom a way different way. And that's one of the reasons that I think God's using my story is to help guys find it faster.
Yeah.
And not have to go through the same things that I did.
I love you, man. All I can think every time we talk is that the enemy just hates what's going on in your life, man. He just hates it so much, man.
It's so true.
Because you are like, you're not even to inning 1. Like, you're in the warm-up phase right now. I still feel like that, man. And it's going to be so awesome to watch your journey and go. Let's just schedule it out a year from now, man. Let's get you on here.
Let's do it.
This back before together.
Oh,
and
man.
Like, dude, look at the last year. Where we're going. That'll be an amazing thing, man. I love you to death, man. You are in my just small circle of people that if you called me at 3 a.m., man, and needed something, I would get my butt out of bed and chat with you. I love you to death, man. And I'm thankful for God and the way that he uses you and shines through you. And that's all it's about, man. And a long enough timeline, man, we're all dead. So it's the impact we can do while we're here and continue to minister to people while we're here. And how do we do that, man? We change ourselves, we impact others. And you're a shining example of that, brother.
Well, I just want to say to you that, man, I love you so much too. And it's a true honor. Again, this is another thing that will make me cry if I talk too much about it. I just want you to know how much, like, being on this podcast, I was telling them before, guys, that being on this podcast is an incredible blessing. And just to be here today is crazy. So just know that you could be there too. And man, I love you. And yeah, I could talk for a long time about that. So
by the way, guys, you ever come on a men's retreat with us? Yeah, we do hard things. We climb mountains. We do some tough stuff. There's also usually some tears there, man, and some hugs and some
that's true. That's true.
a
And
lot
some
of
ping
cool
pong.
bonding stuff
Ping
too, man.
pong.
And some ping pong. We had some epic ping pong matches, man. That's true. All right, man. Well, I appreciate you guys tuning in. Please give my man here, Andy, a follow. That's at abharris03. I'm going to link what he does below. He's also got an awesome product. Is the Gumroad course? Is that free?
Yeah. The ebook's out there. Strength Through Divorce, 7 chapters of just
Still
different
free,
ways.
right?
Yeah, still free. So you send me
Went against my advice and he made it free.
I know. It is. Hey, if you want to pay, I almost fell out of my chair there. If you want to pay for it, it is $19.99, but I will send you a free link so you don't have to. But hey, if you want to, I'll take the support. So
it was nice to support people that are putting out good stuff. I'll leave with that thought for all you guys out there. But man, I'll link that below too. And guys, I just want to say to wrap this up, man, no matter how far you've gone in the other direction, I think Andy shows, if you followed me at all, I show, God can always U-turn you and turn your life around, and you are never too far gone. I believe that's why he had the thief on the cross. He ministered to the woman on the well, the woman at the well. You know, thief on the cross had no good works, zero. And yet Jesus said, you believed, you'll be with me in paradise, right? And all you got to do is take that first step and believe, and then just put take that next step back. Find community, like Andy said. Reach out to him, reach out to us, man. We're here to help you every step of the way. I love you guys. Go be kind to yourself. Go be kind to others. Let's have the greatest day of our lives. Give the people a last word, Andy.
Hey, I love you all. Just take that step today. One step. Do one step.
Amen, baby. All right, you guys go have the greatest day. Peace out.